Ever feel like you're drowning in information when you're in college? I mean, like you're hit with readings and assignments and discussions from every direction.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It can get overwhelming, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're going deep on how we learn in college.
Sounds good.
Cutting through all that noise and figuring out what really matters. And we're going to do that with this super detailed academic paper that you shared with us.
Yeah, it's going to be great to dig into this.
Yeah, it looks at how students like you actually learn.
Right.
And it zeroes in on three really important areas.
Okay.
Self-regulated learning.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably call that SRL for short sometimes.
Makes sense.
And then patterns of learning
Okay.
and student engagement.
Got it.
So our goal is to really help you make sense of these ideas.
Okay.
See how they all fit together and give you some really clear takeaways that you can actually use.
Yeah.
No need to get bogged down in all the technical terms and jargon.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Exactly. And our expert here is going to help us unpack it all.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so let's jump right in and start with self-regulated learning, or SRL.
Yeah. So SRL is basically about you taking charge of your own learning.
Okay.
Think of it like you're the driver.
Yeah.
You're actively watching and guiding and managing all your thoughts and your feelings and your actions so you can reach your learning goals.
So it's more than just, showing up for class.
Way more. It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
right? Like researchers like Pinterich, Zusho, Zimmerman, they all highlight this active role that you play in the learning process.
That's cool.
Yeah, so think about it. These SRL skills are so crucial for succeeding in college,
Okay.
especially like in online courses or those big projects where you're kind of on your own to figure things out.
Yeah, those can be tough.
Definitely. And what's interesting is research actually suggests that a lot of college students struggle with these SRL skills.
Really?
Yeah, you see it in the extra support programs that universities offer. And even in how some students still rely heavily on their parents for guidance, even when they're in college.
Wow, that's surprising.
It is. So it seems like these skills are really important, but not necessarily easy to master.
Right.
So, yeah, that's where we're diving into this.
That makes sense now when we talk about SRL.
Mhm.
Is there like one main theory or model that researchers use to explain it?
Well, there are a bunch of different theories out there,
Okay.
but one that's really influential in higher ed is Pinterich's model.
Okay.
It's popular partly because it connects to a widely used survey called the Motivated Strategies for Learning Questionnaire, or MSLQ.
MSLQ, got it.
Yeah. So Pinterich's model breaks self-regulation down into these four phases.
Okay.
First, you have the forethought phase, which is all about getting ready to learn.
Okay.
Then there's the monitoring phase, where you keep tabs on how your learning is going.
Right.
Then, if you realize you need to make adjustments, that's the control phase.
Okay.
And finally, after you're done, you reflect on what worked and what didn't. That's the reaction or reflection phase.
Okay, so it's like a cycle.
Exactly. It's a continuous process.
And these phases apply to all parts of learning.
Yeah, they apply to like your thinking, your motivation, your emotions,
Yeah.
your behavior, even how you interact with your learning environment.
So let's break those phases down a little more.
Okay.
What does each one actually look like for a student?
Yeah, good question. So let's say you get a new assignment.
Okay.
That forethought phase, that's where you would like look it over.
Okay.
Think about how confident you feel about tackling it, set some goals for what you want to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
and then actually come up with a plan for how you're going to approach it.
Okay.
Then during that monitoring phase, you're like actively paying attention.
Okay.
Am I understanding this material? Is my mind wandering? How motivated do I feel? Am I putting in enough effort? Are my study strategies actually working? Checking in with yourself as you go.
So it's like being really self-aware during the process.
Yeah, totally. And then if you realize something's not working or you're getting off track, that's when that control phase kicks in.
Okay.
You might decide to switch up your study technique,
Okay.
take a break,
Mm-hmm.
or even ask for help.
Right.
You're making adjustments to get back on course.
Got it.
And then finally, once you've finished that paper or taken that exam,
Mm-hmm.
you enter the reaction and reflection phase.
Okay.
This is where you think back on how everything went.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn? What strategies worked well? What would you do differently next time?
It's like a debrief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're analyzing your performance and making notes for the future.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you're always evaluating and tweaking how you learn.
Right.
Now, where does motivation fit into all of this? Like your drive to learn?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Pinterich and Zusho, they believe that your motivation and your ability to self-regulate
Mhm.
are super connected.
Okay.
And they say that both directly influence how well you learn.
Interesting.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
example, if you believe in yourself, if you're focused on really understanding the material and not just getting a good grade,
Uh-huh.
And if you're genuinely interested in what you're learning, you're way more likely to use those deeper learning strategies.
Super learning strategies.
Yeah, things like connecting new ideas to stuff you already know,
Okay.
thinking critically, asking questions, going beyond the surface level.
So it's about making those connections and really engaging with the material.
Exactly. And when you do that, you tend to achieve better results.
Makes sense.
And of course, your own personal characteristics and the learning environment itself, those can play a role too.
How so?
Well, they can either help or hinder this whole process.
Okay.
Like if you have supportive professors or a really engaging learning environment, you're probably going to be more motivated and better able to regulate your learning.
So it's not just about having the skills to self-regulate, it's also about having the desire.
Right. You need both the skill and the will.
Is there research that backs this up?
Tons. There's actually a lot of research that looks at how these different factors relate to each other.
Like what?
Well, one study by Zusho and some other researchers looked at university chemistry students,
Okay.
and they found that students who reported using more metacognitive strategies,
Metacognitive.
that means thinking about your own thinking.
Okay.
So they found that these students also tended to be more motivated to really master the material,
Uh-huh.
and they saw the value in what they were learning.
So they were more invested.
Exactly. They were taking ownership of their learning, and they were doing well.
That's great.
And that same study, they also found links between how students performed in the course and both their motivation and the different learning strategies they used.
So those deeper strategies really paid off.
They did. But what's interesting is that even using simpler strategies like repetition also showed a positive link to how well they did.
So all learning efforts have some value.
It seems so,
Yes.
but being aware of and guiding your learning seems to be the key.
Okay, so we've talked about one study. But is there a bigger picture view of this?
Yeah, definitely. There was this big meta-analysis by Dent and Koenka.
Okay.
It looked at research on younger students, all the way from elementary to high school.
So pretty wide range.
Yeah, and it confirmed that both your learning techniques and your ability to think about your learning are important for achieving.
Okay.
But they actually found that metacognition, that thinking about your own thinking, has an even stronger connection with achievement.
Interesting. So how do they put it?
They said, while having good study habits helps you learn, actively checking if you've actually learned something is even more critical.
So it's not just about doing the work, it's about making sure the work is actually working for you.
Exactly. You got to be mindful of your learning process.
Okay, that's a good point.
And they also found that those deeper processing strategies are generally more strongly tied to doing well in school.
But even the simple stuff like memorization can help.
Right. It can. But being aware of and guiding your own learning seems to be the key.
Got it.
Oh, and one more thing from that analysis.
Okay.
They found that the strength of that link between SRL and how well you do can actually vary depending on the subject you're studying.
Really?
Yeah, like it was stronger in social studies compared to math.
That's interesting.
And they also noticed that this relationship kind of fluctuates across different age groups.
Oh, like how so?
Well, it seems like SRL might be particularly important in the later years of high school,
Okay.
when the academic work gets more demanding.
Yeah, it definitely ramps up in high school.
Right, and that likely carries over to college, too.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, it seems like these skills become even more crucial as you progress through your education.
Okay, so that gives us a good foundation of SRL. But what about more recent trends in research? Like, where are things headed?
Yeah, so one really big shift is this recognition that learning is a dynamic and ever-changing process.
So it's not like a one and done kind of thing.
Not at all. It's this ongoing thing that keeps evolving. Researchers like Ben Eliyahu and Bernanke, they emphasize that SRL is a cyclical process. What you do at one stage of learning can totally affect what happens later on
Okay.
and in future learning situations.
So it's all connected.
Totally. And there's also this growing understanding that your self-regulation can change depending on the context and the specific tasks you're working on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like you probably approach studying for a multiple choice exam way differently than you would for writing a research paper.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And researchers are really trying to capture those subtle differences.
That seems pretty tricky.
It is. And that brings us to another big trend.
Okay.
The challenge of accurately measuring something that's so fluid and context dependent.
Yeah, like how do you study something that's always in motion?
Right, it's a big question. So traditionally, researchers have relied on students' reflections after the learning has happened,
Okay.
like through surveys and questionnaires.
Right.
But there are some issues with that approach.
Like what?
Well, first, our memories aren't always perfect.
Yeah, true.
Can we really accurately recall every thought we had while we were learning something?
Probably not.
And also those offline measures.
With surveys and stuff?
Yeah, they might not fully capture the specific context of the learning situation.
Okay, so what's the alternative?
Well, there's been a move towards using more online measures
Mm-hmm.
that try to capture SRL as it's happening.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so think like asking students to think out loud while they're solving a problem,
Okay.
or carefully analyzing their steps as they work, or using learning diaries, or observing students in the classroom, or even looking at the data from online learning platforms.
So you're trying to get a more real-time view of what's happening.
Exactly. And what's interesting is studies have shown that these online measures don't always match up perfectly with the traditional offline measures.
That's weird.
It is,
Hmm.
but they do tend to be better at predicting how well students actually achieve.
So which one's better?
That's the thing. It seems like both types of measures have their pros and cons.
Oh.
Offline measures, they're often easier to use with larger groups of students.
Right.
And a lot of researchers believe that students' own perceptions of their learning are really valuable, even if they're not always perfectly objective.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it's not about throwing out the old ways entirely.
Okay.
It's about refining them and making them more sensitive to context.
Gotcha.
Like one example is the Regulation of Learning questionnaire developed by McCardle and Hadwin.
Okay.
That's an offline measure, but it tries to be more context sensitive.
So it sounds like the best approach is to use a mix of methods.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Multiple sources over time to get a more complete and accurate picture of SRL.
Okay, so measurement techniques are evolving.
If
What other cool trends are happening in SRL research?
Another big one is what some call the warming of SRL research.
Warming.
Yeah. So while the importance of self-efficacy or believing in yourself has always been there,
Mm-hmm.
there's now a much bigger focus on how a wider range of motivational and emotional factors play into self-regulation.
Okay, so it's not just about confidence anymore.
Right. It's about the whole package.
Okay.
Researchers are looking at how your goals,
Mm-hmm.
your values, your interest in the subject, even your emotions, all influence how you regulate your learning.
So it's getting more holistic.
Exactly. And some researchers even define SRL as basically how your motivation shows up in your learning behaviors guided by your thinking.
So it's not just about can you regulate your learning, but why you want to.
Yeah, and how that why drives your actions.
It's about the interplay of your skills and your will.
Exactly. And
Mm.
studies have shown that if you're focused on really understanding the material, what are called mastery goals,
Okay.
you're more likely to use those deeper learning strategies we talked about before.
So your goals shape your approach.
They do, and researchers like Wolters have done a ton of work on what's called motivational regulation.
And motivational regulation, what's that?
It's basically the strategies you use to manage your own motivation,
Oh,
like reminding yourself why a task is important or keeping your eye on the prize.
so it's like self-motivation strategies.
Exactly, and they've found connections between these strategies and both your beliefs about your abilities
Mhm.
and how you use those cognitive regulation strategies.
So it's all connected.
It is, and they've
Mm.
even found a link between grit or perseverance and how you use various learning and self-regulation techniques.
So the more grit you have, the better you are at regulating your learning.
That's what the research suggests.
Well, it's amazing how interconnected all these aspects of learning are.
It really is, and it's not just about individual learning either.
What do you mean?
Well, researchers are also starting to look at the social side of learning.
Okay.
So SRL isn't just something you do alone. It happens in group projects and collaborative settings, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Researchers talk about individual, interpersonal, and group-level regulation.
So you might regulate your own learning, try to help a classmate regulate theirs, or work together as a group to regulate everyone's learning.
Exactly. And even something as simple as asking for help is seen as a social SRL strategy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting because how you feel about needing help can influence whether you actually seek it out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some people are afraid to ask for help.
Right. And what's cool is that studies have found that students who are willing to ask for help when they need it tend to be more self-regulated in other areas too.
So it's like a sign of good self-regulation skills.
It seems so.
Okay, so our understanding of SRL is becoming more nuanced.
Definitely more complex and multifaceted.
Okay, and one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can't forget about technology.
Oh, yeah. Huge factor.
Right, computer-based learning environments are everywhere in college now.
For sure.
And SRL is super important in those settings, especially since they can be less structured.
Definitely research suggests that when technology is designed to support your self-regulation, your motivation and your engagement, it generally leads to better learning outcomes.
So it's not just about having the technology, it's about how you use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just get reminders to self-regulate.
Huh.
What seems to work better are more targeted digital tools and training programs that help you develop specific SRL skills.
So it's about having the right kind of tech support.
Right. Tools that actually teach you how to be a better self-regulated learner.
Okay, so before we move on, any final thoughts on SRL? Like, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah. So the big things to remember are that actively managing your learning, your thoughts, your motivation, your actions, your environment, all of it really does make a difference in college.
Okay.
This ability to self-regulate, it's not something you're born with, it's something you develop.
So anyone can become a better self-regulated learner.
Exactly. It takes effort and the right support, but it's definitely possible.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. And the other key takeaway is that this self-regulation stuff, it's not a one-time thing. It's a skill you can constantly work on and improve over time.
So it's like a lifelong learning process.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a really helpful overview of SRL.
Glad to hear it.
Now let's switch gears and talk about patterns of learning.
Sounds good.
What exactly does that involve?
So the research on patterns of learning, which includes things like the student approaches to learning perspective and those broader ideas about learning styles.
Okay.
It's all about understanding your typical or habitual ways of learning.
So like your go-to study methods.
Exactly. The kinds of cognitive processes you tend to use,
Okay.
the motivational strategies you rely on, and your metacognitive approaches.
So basically how you approach a new learning challenge.
Precisely. And the work of Biggs back in the 1980s is often considered foundational in this area.
Okay.
He identified 3 main ways college students approach learning.
All right. Let's hear them.
So first you have the surface approach, where the main goal is just to get by,
Okay.
and it relies heavily on memorization.
Just trying to remember the fact.
Right. Then there's the deep approach, which is driven by curiosity and a desire for understanding.
So it's more about really getting it.
Exactly. And people with this approach, they use more active and elaborative strategies. Things like connecting ideas to their existing knowledge, thinking critically, making inferences.
Okay, so they're really digging deep.
Exactly. And finally, you have the achieving approach,
Okay.
which is motivated by a desire to excel and compete.
So they're all about performance.
Yeah, they want to do better than others, and they tend to be very organized and strategic in their approach.
So they have a plan.
Definitely. And Biggs, he actually developed a model
Okay.
that highlights how a deep approach tends to lead to better outcomes, and how your personal characteristics and the learning environment both influence these approaches.
So it's a combination of who you are and where you are.
Right, nature and nurture.
Now, these 3 approaches, they seem pretty different.
They are.
Is it safe to say that the deep approach is generally the most beneficial?
In most cases, yes. But later researchers, they felt like something was missing.
Oh, what's that?
Well, researchers like Vermont and Vermetten,
Okay.
they argued that the earlier work on learning patterns didn't pay enough attention to the regulatory side of learning.
Oh, right. That planning, monitoring, evaluating stuff we were talking about with SRL.
Exactly. They felt like the focus was too much on just thinking and motivation.
So they wanted to bring in that self-management aspect.
Right. And that's what they did. Their model of learning styles includes not just the cognitive activities, but also emotional or affective aspects and those crucial regulation activities.
Oh, okay, so it's a more well-rounded view.
Definitely more comprehensive.
So how does their model actually work?
So they look at different styles of how you process information.
Okay.
Some people are deep processors. Some prefer a step-by-step approach.
Okay.
And others focus on concrete examples.
So different ways of making sense of things.
Right. And they also look at different ways you regulate your learning.
Okay.
Like, are you self-directed? Do you rely on external guidance? Or do you lack regulation altogether?
So they're factoring in that self-management element.
Exactly. And they also consider your beliefs about learning.
Like what?
Like what you think learning is all about and your reasons for studying.
So whether you're genuinely interested or just doing it for a career.
Right. All those factors play a role.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Their model gives us a much richer understanding of a person's learning style.
Okay, so it's a big step forward from the earlier models.
Definitely. And what's cool is that research in this area is still going strong.
Oh, yeah. What are some of the hot topics right now?
Well, similar to SRO research, there's a big focus on understanding how the learning environment and your individual characteristics shape your learning patterns.
So it's that nature versus nurture thing again.
Right. Researchers are also looking at how those patterns might change over time.
Okay.
like how they vary in different subjects or with different teaching and assessment
So it's
methods.
not like your learning style is set in stone.
Not necessarily. This seems like it can be influenced by a lot of factors.
And they're also looking at how your learning patterns relate to things like your personality and your past experiences.
Exactly, trying to figure out what makes you tick as a learner.
Right. And there's also this growing awareness that the term learning patterns itself can mean different things in different studies,
Yeah, that's a good point.
which can make it hard to compare findings.
Right, so there's a push to use a variety of methods to get a more complete picture.
More data, more perspectives.
Exactly, triangulate the data.
Now, you mentioned that the learning environment can shape learning patterns.
Uh-huh.
Can you give us some specific examples of how that works?
Yeah, so studies have found that students might be more likely to use those deeper learning approaches in certain subjects,
Okay.
like the social sciences, for example.
Interesting.
And it also seems like when instructors actively encourage and model those deeper approaches, students are more likely to adopt them.
So the teacher's role is important.
Definitely, they can create a learning environment that fosters those deeper strategies.
Makes sense now. Have there been any surprising findings in this area?
Yeah, actually, there have been a few.
Like what?
Well, some studies have shown that students might actually report using less deep learning strategies as the semester goes on.
Oh, that's weird.
It is, you would think it would be the opposite, right? Like they would get better at it over time,
Yeah, you think so.
but it could be that they get burned out or the workload gets too heavy or they just kind of revert to old habits.
Makes sense. And what about those student-centered assessments? Like the ones that are supposed to encourage deeper learning?
Well, those have produced some surprising findings too.
Really?
Yeah, some studies have shown that they can actually lead to more surface-level approaches.
So it backfires.
Sometimes it could be because there's not enough structure or guidance,
Okay.
or the students feel overwhelmed by the open-ended nature of the tasks.
So it's not guaranteed win,
Not always.
Yeah.
And even in a problem-based learning environments.
which are supposed to be all about deep learning.
Exactly. Even there, students have been found to use more surface approaches sometimes.
That's surprising.
It is, but things like how much time they put into self-study and their developing sense of professionalism, those factors seem to play a role.
So it's not just about the learning environment itself.
Right. It's also about how students choose to engage with it.
Okay, so it's a complex interplay of factors.
Now, what about those personal factors you mentioned? How do those influence learning patterns?
Yeah, good question.
Well, research has found some interesting connections.
Like what?
Well, for one, using a deep approach to learning seems to be linked to being more satisfied with your courses
Okay.
and having higher self-confidence in your learning abilities.
Makes sense.
And it also seems to be related to certain personality traits, like being open to new experiences and being conscientious.
So who you are as a person can influence how you approach learning.
It can. And motivation also plays a big role.
Of course.
If you're really focused on mastering the material rather than just getting a good grade,
Huh.
you're more likely to use those deeper processing strategies and engage in more self-regulation.
So it's about having the right mindset.
Exactly. And how interested and how relevant you find a course to be can also affect your approach.
Makes sense. If you're not into it, you're probably not going to put in as much effort.
Right.
Okay, so it's this combination of internal factors and external factors that shapes your learning style.
That's the idea.
Now, how do we actually measure these patterns?
Well, that's a constantly evolving area.
Okay,
There are actually a bunch of different survey instruments that researchers use.
like what?
Well, you've got the inventory of learning styles,
Okay.
the approaches to learning and studying inventory,
Uh-huh.
the revised two-factor study process questionnaire, and a whole bunch more.
So lots of options.
Yeah, and each one is based on slightly different ideas about what a learning pattern actually is.
Okay.
And the fact that there are so many different instruments and that researchers are using all sorts of fancy statistical techniques to analyze the data,
Mm-hmm.
it means we need to be careful when we compare findings across different studies.
Yeah, apples to oranges and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a messy but fascinating field.
Okay, so the tools are still being developed.
They are.
But what are the main takeaways from this research on learning patterns?
So the ultimate goal is to understand your characteristic ways of learning
Mm-hmm.
and how those habits connect to your academic success.
Okay.
Early on, a lot of the focus was on showing that a deep approach generally leads to better outcomes.
Which makes sense.
But more recently, the field has broadened to include that role of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really trying to pinpoint the personal and contextual factors that influence those relationships.
So it's getting more nuanced.
Definitely. And one ongoing challenge is figuring out how to effectively encourage students to consistently adopt those deeper approaches.
Even in learning environments designed for that purpose.
Exactly. And another key feature of this research is its reliance on those self-report questionnaires.
Right, getting students to tell us about their learning pattern.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered SRL,
Mm.
we've covered patterns of learning. Now let's tackle our third area, student engagement.
Sounds good.
So what does that term really mean in higher ed?
Well, it's become a pretty big deal in higher ed research.
Okay.
And it's interesting because it comes from two main but connected lines of inquiry.
Okay.
One comes from psychology, where researchers have looked at how to boost engagement in high school students.
Okay.
And they consider things like cognitive, emotional, and behavioral aspects.
So the whole student.
Right. And the other line is more specific to higher ed,
Okay.
and partly driven by concerns about student success and whether college is actually worth it.
Yeah, that's a big question these days.
It is. So in this higher ed context, student engagement is often broadly defined as the activities you do and the conditions in the learning environment that are linked to effective learning.
So it's about how involved and invested students are in their whole college experience.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And researchers point out that this idea of engagement draws on insights from a bunch of different fields, like psychology, sociology, and different learning theories.
So it's a multidisciplinary concept.
It is. And there have been several influential frameworks that have come out of this research.
Like what?
Well, there's PACE.
Okay.
He talked about the quality of effort that students put in using the resources and opportunities their college offers.
So it's about making the most of what's available.
Exactly. And then you have Aston.
Okay.
He focused on involvement, or how much students participate in academic, social, and extracurricular activities.
So being an active member of the college community.
Right. And then there's Tinto.
Okay.
His model looked at academic and social integration.
So how well students feel like they fit in.
Exactly. Whether they feel connected to both the academic and social aspects of college life.
So it seems like engagement is about more than just what happens in the classroom.
Absolutely. It's about the whole experience.
And what sparked all this interest in engagement in the first place?
Well, one big thing was a growing dissatisfaction with using things like college rankings as the main measures of quality.
Okay.
There was this push to focus more on the actual learning process.
So looking beyond those superficial measures.
Right, and figuring out what actually constitutes good practices in undergraduate education.
Makes sense.
And this ultimately led to the development of the National Survey of Student Engagement, or NSSE,
Okay.
and similar surveys in other countries.
Oh, like what?
Well, there's the Australasian Survey of Student Engagement, or AUSE,
Okay.
and the Canadian Comprehensive Survey of Student Engagement, or CCSS.
So a global movement towards measuring engagement.
It seems so.
And what does the NSSE actually look at?
So it focuses on 5 key areas:
Okay.
the level of academic challenge in courses,
Mm-hmm.
the use of active learning techniques,
Okay.
the quality of student-faculty interactions,
Got it.
the availability of enriching experiences like internships or study abroad programs,
Okay.
and the overall supportive climate on campus.
So it's a pretty comprehensive view of the student experience.
It is, and the AUSE, it actually includes an extra area focusing on work-integrated learning.
Yeah.